I just want to say a few things about the thing we did. So the thing we did was create a futuring workshop. This ran yesterday. It was originally going to be 2 days, but we consolidated it into 1 day. And we had several reasons for doing this workshop. Let me just check my notes. So we wanted to create a thing that looks at that helps provoke speculating in design and AI. I was inspired by what Grace was saying about disrupting things, and that's part of the reason that we made this crazy thing also. We want to create community around futuring for AI and build ideas around that. Again, riffing a little bit on Grace's mention, kind of break open current approaches to AI and design, and break out of our current rut or whatever we're in right now. Also, creating an experience. The ultimate outcome of this, the magazine, we hope is an interesting experience. Again, kind of riffing on Dave's question earlier. One of the things that was kind of a theme in this event we did yesterday, we had about 15 people from all over Europe participating, along with Dave, myself, and Maria organizing. One of the things we found as a theme that sort of came out of it was a sort of anti-convenience notion of trying to break this idea that AI is about creating convenience. So I think that's an important thing for us as designers to not get caught up in this sort of solutionism, the sort of Silicon Valley solutionism that seems to pervade. It was funny because some of the crazy ideas that we came up with yesterday were like, oh, you could do a startup with that and get it funded, which would be a bad idea. So anyway, and we're also hoping to bring some humor to this topic. So let me just go through some slides here. So this is the workshop and stuff going on, and I love that Maria-Luce was doing some analog drawing in a design and AI workshop. What we did is we made a fake ACM Interactions magazine. So what would ACM Interactions be in 20 years from now, in 2043? So Maria did some amazing layout here of simulating the magazine, this future magazine. So just a few of the articles and items. We tried to do a variety of items. The magazine has a lot of content, and we played around with what that content could be. So the Lettuce Renaissance, Future Design Schools Embrace Analog Wisdom, and with a map of all the new Lettuce schools all over the world teaching design. And then say goodbye to emotional distress. Use this prosthesis to shut your brain off. Using AI, of course. Another interesting idea that came out was this idea of the 2288 lab. And the name is based on this idea that the World Economic Forum has noted that it will take until the year 2288 to fully close the gender pay gap. So AI is not going to solve everything. And these systemic issues are still going to be here even in 20 years from now. Another systemic issue is eliminating hunger. Which, sadly, we haven't got very far on and need to work on some more. So an article perhaps on, or a news burst on how advancements have stalled in AI's pursuit of zero hunger. I guess AI is not pursuing it, but people are trying to use AI to do it. And then sort of looking at the more sort of economic issues involved here. Of course, there are many other ideas, but we'll share the PDF with everyone. There's a lot of stuff there. But so this idea is that there are these two battling. Was Lenny in the room? I was going to have Lenny explain it. But the idea is two big corporations like Meta and Google are battling over data centers and control over data centers. And the concept behind this is that what they do is when they take over a data center, they wipe the models clean. And so because of branding issues, one of the companies decided that the model should not notice red anymore. And this creates a lot of disruption. So, and you can imagine how this relates also to how models, versioning of models, because every time there's a new ChatGPT, it answers differently, right? And so we have to be thinking about how this happens and how power controls the models. These big corporations control models. So that's the few things. Let me just zip back to the overview. So, and we have gotten an initial interest in publishing this at some point by ACM, by Elizabeth Churchill, who spoke at this conference last year. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of work to do in pulling this into something. Yeah. Do you want to just hold that? A PDF.
And as well as thanking Maria-Luce for the concept of ACM Interactions, we have to thank
B-Lab for the amazing work.
All of the graphics go in real time.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you want to say anything? No. Okay. All right. Have at it.
Our idea also was that we could use, well, we work a lot with speculations, fictional things, and the way we use them is to actually engage with topics that sometimes remain far from us. So we see this as a device for engaging with certain conversations. For instance, something that Baptiste started to mention before is the kind of power and role we have as educators, but we didn't engage too much with this conversation on teaching design in relation to AI. And maybe we can take the article on, quite biased in that because I really like it, on Ludi's design schools to start reflecting a bit on that. What do we think could be our future as design educators in light of current AI trends? Where do we stand? What is our wish?
Okay. It's like the first question in the previous
Can I just
session.
point out that none of these questions were shared beforehand.
And that's what makes now. Just keep throwing at
hammering us
you.
with
Yes.
these massive questions. Oh, this is great.
This is the new panel. That's the thing. That's educational.
So, yeah. Maybe I will start and then we can.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just because. Yeah. Anyways, we have to start. I don't know.
That's a good way to start.
I have no idea, but I guess one important things one important thing is actually the tools that we are developing and we are teaching with. And I guess teaching is also actually quite a good moment also to build tools collaboratively. So basically, I'm saying this because in a way we are teaching with a colleague of mine as well. We are trying to build. It's kind of a toolkit, but it's really all the tools that designer could use in order to involve artificial intelligence or machine learning in their design project. It's web-based, but I guess it started from more an anecdotal kind of project, and now we are really seeing the importance of tooling, of like really building the appropriate tools, and also it made us understand how we could maybe build a community around the tools. Everything is open source and stuff, but it's not easy to build an open source community around a new tool that you have to learn and so on and so on. So, but it's not necessarily our ambition to have something that is used by everybody, but I guess this question of what is the tools and how we can develop tools in order to teach, that's actually a very important question.
Thank you. And I had a small question to that. And do you think these tools and resources are important now, or they will keep being important in 10 years from now?
I think they're important now in order not to think that AI is only this kind of algorithm black box that you just interact with. So for instance, in this tool, we could you could build your own ChatGPT somehow.
Okay.
By using API from companies like Face or others. I don't want to do advertising or whatever, but there is like pre-trained models, so you could integrate this in your application, so you could bring your own kind of ChatGPT. And I think this is important now in order to maybe envision what it could be in the future, and not saying, okay, it's only things that live online and it's a black box and we have no agency on it, so it's related.
Thank you.
Sorry, I feel like okay. Yeah, so I feel like there is already, this is kind of already happening, and you know, I'm immediately thinking of low tech or kind of permacomputing and degrowth futures, which I think is really fascinating because, you know, we're so inscribed into thinking of futures as somehow a natural progression of now, which is kind of riddled with particular ideologies around progress, which is mainly tied to capitalism. And so when you try to imagine a future, let's say, that is degrowth based, it kind of doesn't, it's like, well, where's the future in this? And it really comes down to ways of networking with each other, ways of kind of organizing. And I feel like this particular, how do you design in that context, I think is really interesting, because design is also very much tied to particular ways of producing and making that are also tied to capitalism. And so if I think this, I don't know, this to me feels like it could fit quite nicely in a degrowth future, in which case the way of design wouldn't be to progress in the way that you might understand progress. That is more relational, circular. It is more based on sharing, give, receive, where you don't actually get somewhere else. You just cultivate a better now. I tried to dabble a little bit in this with what a low-tech simulation would be, which was a little bit funny because it's like, you know, if you think of a smart city is based on sensors that kind of represent what is. Humans are also sensors. So a low-tech simulation in a particular context would be people observing things and having a conversation, which is kind of already what we do. So it's kind of like if you reverse what we outsource and you just reorganize it in a different way, how do you design school or education around that, which is very kind of not maybe post-industrial, it is, but it also is reoriented to a very other particular path.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe for me it's a bit more related to the present, because I teach a course that has a bit of a funny name. It's called Futurism, not the art movement of the Italians, even though I'm Italian, but yeah. I digress. So in this course is part of the specific master, which is a bit out of the ordinary. So it is a transdisciplinary master that is called Shaping Responsible Futures. What else? And the idea there is that we do a bit of pasting, we do a bit of futuring, so we look at the past and the future, and we really go away from this concept of progress that is linear, the concept of the now that is one, and then futures that are many, but that we are going to, you know, segment. And what we do is that we teach a student population that is heavily engineering oriented. They do not have humanities whatsoever. There is social sciences, but there is not really much of a crossover. So for this type of audience, we really teach about the plurality of pasts and what does that mean, the plurality of futures and what does it mean, the plurality of presents, and using that to go back to certain applications that actually they are even, not only look this, but also in the 70s, we already have done plenty of these, to not using actually data, not using high-tech technology, but using more low-tech experiential bodily experience together with stakeholders as well to figure it out how to go about certain challenges that sometimes do not even need AI there, right? So I think that for me is actually the most fun teaching I ever done in my life, not only because I don't give grades, which is very nice because I don't believe in grades, but specifically because we are trying to demystifying again this concept of innovation for innovation's sake, solutionism, and the very fact that you need to have a startup, you need to make a lot of money, and you need to expand thanks to AI or robotics or whatever, but is really more focused on understanding practices, experiences in a communal way, even with non-humans. And I think this also connects a bit with the this, because they wanted to go away and to breach away from the normativity of the Industrial Revolution that brought about mechanization that eventually became extreme in the early 20th century, right? The Charlie Chaplin image, we all have it in our head. And I think that is also for me the future of education, and that's something that I take also almost a stance as an activist, and I think that's something that we did not discuss, but sometimes designers have also different, roles, and the role of an activist in an academic environment is also quite important for the students as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kars.
so my reading of Luddite history is a little bit different. They were not against technology, they were against a particular deployment of technology. They were actually quite fond of technology, so long as it was kind of embedded in their cottage industry, kind of economic also practices. So they were kind of fighting against disenfranchisement and kind of the use of technology at scale to do that. But maybe that's a bit of an aside. When it comes to the education thing, this connects, I think, to the discussion we had previously about designers' power and the degree to which you feel like you have agency to change things. I think, in education, design and AI education, for me the challenge has been to, on the one hand, like Baptiste was also talking about, giving students a first-hand experience of the technology so that they kind of build up this tacit understanding of the technology as a material. But then also kind of the larger, zooming out, kind of the political economy in which AI systems are kind of constructed today so that they can kind of orient themselves towards it. And whatever that orientation might be, I have my own preferences, but setting that aside for the moment. And then alongside that, if you find yourself doing design for AI systems, you tend to find yourself operating at a different scale than was typical of, let's say, product design or interaction design, traditionally speaking, where there was this one-to-one relationship. So then you need different design methods to kind of express your design kind of intentions. And for that, indeed, storytelling and those sorts of things on the one hand are very useful. And on the other hand, I guess tools from strategic design is, at least for me personally, has been useful to appropriate towards that end. So giving them also means to express their design intent in a way that allows them to kind of play in this AI space, which is at a different scale.
So you say, in a way, should be part of AI literacy, to engage with AI.
Yeah, engaging with the technology is challenging because the typical way of doing AI is also at a vast scale, at far removed from individuals. So we were talking in the break also, Baptiste and I, about things like the Wekinator, which I've used in the past also, to at least give students an initial sense of what this technology can and cannot do. But then the challenge is to connect that to, because those are kind of like toys almost, toy versions of the real thing. So how do you allow them to make that translation and understand the differences and the similarities is one of the big challenges there. But you need both.
Yeah.
And one of, if, now that we're here also in Delft, one of the things I'd like to see a university like Delft and other technical universities in Europe do is develop alternative ways of doing AI that kind of make us less dependent on the ways that are dominant in the industry today. So decentralized models, low resource computing, all the rest. And if we can do that, then that can also kind of enable different ways of teaching AI.
Sounds great. Thank you. Do we have questions? Yes. The microphone? No, it's coming.
You must use the mic.
Yeah. No other option.
Yes. I'm not sure it's per se a question, but it's something I was already thinking about in the first talk earlier, and I see it coming back in the examples now. So when we talk about design and AI, I feel there are two very different things we actually talk about. There's design and the concept of AI, so using the machine learning thinking as a process, maybe also in our creative processes. I've seen that a bit in some of your own projects as well. And then there's designing for a world where AI is already an entity, maybe more in Kars' work, where it exists and you're designing around it. And I just wanted to say that because I feel like in the next 2 days, it's an important concept or distinction. I don't know if there's some reflection on it or not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Someone?
Actually
Yeah,
existing AI is kind of the term that I sometimes like to use.
Yeah?
Which is, it's quite different from some of the other more speculative kind of scenarios that we are exploring, I guess. But I agree, the distinction is real. Yeah.
Yeah. And indeed, there is this very strong distinction between the use of AI in design practices, like for ideation, and this very different scale of design contributing to AI being deployed in society. And it comes with very different implications. Do you see yourself more engaged with one or the other? I know, Kars.
What is the one and what is the other?
One is like I use AI more for augmenting maybe my processes, for seeing what are the consequences of using it in my creative processes. And the other is like I'm involved in projects about AI, deploying AI in the world, even hypothetically.
It's more the other, but I still use the former sometimes. But I think that also goes back to what you were touching upon before, the fact that sometimes if we stay too much in the speculative realm, it can be very productive, but it could also be counterproductive in the sense that we do not know what the reality is and what also the limits are of current technology, and we might also perpetuate certain, mystifications and over-representations and over-promises of AI through that. So I think it's very good also to just engage with what is already out there. And one thing that actually the Ludist thing made me think about, it's the fact that nowadays, if you look at Hackathon Design Jam, they have been appropriated by the techno-solutionist agenda, so to say. But before, in the 70s, and this is very well documented in the work of Sasha Costanza-Chock in Design Justice, this was a form of Ludist resistance, which I also agree that the Ludists did like technology. They did not dislike technology. They disliked the normative aspect coming from it. And I think maybe also that, like using more the creative ways are something that we use a lot as designer. We might also use in a more fun way as not designer, as even as students. But it would be nice to maybe connect the two, to see the two connected. Even though indeed I agree with
Fleur.
Yes, with you about it.
Would you like to add something?
Yeah, maybe if I understood your comments, is the two approaches that you mentioned is one maybe is I'm going to reformulate. Maybe I'm more wrong, but one is like using machine learning as a let's say design material. I want to to build my movement recognition system for my musical performance. And the other one is, let's say I'm gonna design, let's say, an interactive system using an existing AI. Let's say I want to use, I want to develop an application with a chatbot for museum and stuff. So I guess that's the two. Okay. So I guess me, I'm really into the first. Yeah, definitely. I think it comes from the fact that I started to work with this technology through this path. And I think the second part is because I'm really unhappy with maybe the second one, the way it's actually deployed. And I mean, it comes back to what we were saying, is the fact that the existing technology, or the existing, let's say, like huge models, or like large language models, for instance, to take an example, they are definitely they are really conveying this idea of normativity and objectivation of knowledge. So the idea is like to build the biggest model that can encompass all the knowledge of humanity, which I think is pretty wrong, and it has shown a lot of biases and weaknesses in that. And so I guess I'm less interested in working with this technology in my research, also for that, because I'm unhappy with and I guess what I'm trying to do also with teaching is to imagine other design of the technology itself. So is that to say maybe more decentralized models, more low resource model, tiny model, shallow learning as we call it, all these things that interest me, but very from a personal opinion.
Would you like to add something, Grace?
I would say my practice kind of deals with both, because I am trying to subvert the kind of what is and how it's used and how it's deployed and in what context and for who, but I am also trying to look at these different ways of creating models. So I would say, yeah, I enjoy traversing both.
Thank you. Do we have another question in the audience? Okay, so, yeah, of course. It's coming.
Hi, Özlem. I'm coming from the industry, and
thanks for joining.
Actually, if I see everybody, it's a bit negative about AI. And actually, I'm not that young, and I'm not really into it. But I see some, sparkles about it. If I see all the results and stuff, I'm curious. How do you deal with your students if they are getting making all their stuff much shorter time and all this kind of things? And the other one is, did you ever make it like a blind testing? You give let's say, the project to teach the students, and they try one with AI and one without, and what are the outcomes? Actually, it's really changing, or just curious about, because I only see negative environment, and I'm also thinking okay, if we are negative about it, and then they go for this ChatGPT or something, they're going to other people. And in the end, we cannot help them to improve because we are too much against. So just curious about your thoughts.
That's only our facade, that we are too much against.
Oh man.
No, I'm just kidding. Somebody would like to respond to this? Thank you for the comment.
I think at the end of before the break, we did
a bit of that.
at least express some of our optimism. Also, I think it's perfectly legitimate to be critical, and it's not necessarily the same as being negative, although it can come across as being negative. So a little bit of pushback there. In terms of comparing before and after, I wouldn't personally. I think honestly, it would be hard to compare. But I'm pretty relaxed about students in general using this stuff. I think it's much more critical to, and I'm also dog fooding it. So as I'm writing my papers at the moment, for example, I'm finishing my PhD thesis right now. I allow myself to mess around with language models and so on, to at least get a first-hand understanding of what it can and cannot bring. Spoiler alert: I'm not too impressed, at least for academic writing. But yeah, for the students, I think first of all, like disclosure that they use these tools is important. So for that to be kind of in your own teaching, be relaxed about it is probably and perhaps even welcoming is important. But then it really depends on the task. So I have design tasks in mind at the moment because most of the teaching I do is very studio based. So there I'm like, whatever works, right? I look at the intent and the outcome, and the tools are secondary. But I do think that, again, this literacy is very important. That if you make a whatever AI model part of your practice, then it's very important that you understand what its limits are, so that you can use it with deliberate intent. And I think there is a real challenge also for us, because again, coming back to my point about the current mode of doing AI, even for me as an individual teacher, it's actually quite hard to understand how these models operate, because typically they are shrouded in secrecy, and they are opaque for various reasons. And I think that's a problem. So yeah, then I'm much more keen on Baptiste's approach, where at least we know what we're using, right? So we have a much deeper understanding of the technology that we are also giving to our students to use. But of course, the stuff that they come across on Facebook and LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever is different from that. So that's a challenge.
Would you like to add something?
I don't know. I just wrote a paper about it, so we could discuss a bit more. But I think, I'm always under the assumption that they're going to use it, and it's absolutely fine by me. It's my responsibility to teach critical thinking and to teach reflexivity in my practice. Therefore, I expect them to develop skills that we might not have thought about that were the most important ones. And that's why I'm shifting more about on criticism, on ability to understand very much where things are coming from, and to have, again, these reflexivity perspectives. And I agree also with Baptiste. Also, sometimes I invite them to use other type of tools just to see and to acquaint themselves with other perspectives. But being critical doesn't mean to be negative. It's just that our culture is a bit Americanized on this, like that we need to always say, yeah, fantastic, exciting about everything. But being critical doesn't mean we do not need to use ChatGPT or anything else. We need just to be able to also know how to use it.
We're just being too European. We need a little bit of more sense of humor.
Yeah, I think we should be more humorous. Yeah, humor is always good. But it's not a problem if a student uses that. I just want to, but the student, if a university student that does design, even if it's not a university student, they need to be able to use critical thinking, and that's something that so far the machines are not very good at it.
I see. If you are not blocking, then I see the point. Of course, you have to ask, and you let them think. Yeah, but it's more clear now that they are allowed.
They are allowed.
Well, yeah, it's
encouraged even.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
No, yeah, I mean, also to answer your question, I guess, or actually personally, I've been negative for some form of enactments of AI, if you wish. But AI is so broad. I'm working since quite a few years on AI, if you want, but that's maybe not the thing I'm negative about. I'm really positive about the type of technology I'm working with and with my students. But I guess the idea is also to show that maybe the way part of this technology is actually communicated and the enactment it has now can also be negative in a way. ChatGPT might be an example when it's actually saying things like what the example that you say about the Palestinians and Israelis, that they deserve justice, and you have really different result. And there are many examples. And the thing is, this is problematic to me. This is not only the example, obviously, but the fact that this technology, that in the media, so the students, if you wish, that in the general public media, you can you mostly see things about AI that is a super intelligent entity that is kind of decontextualized from anything. And that's the thing I'm really trying to criticize and be negative about, because it really brings these things of, and then there's all this discourse about extinction of humanity and all these people in the tech industry and academia saying, oh, it's going to be the extinction of humanity and so on and so forth. And that's really something that, I mean, I guess in my courses what I'm doing is just say, okay, this is not only this. There is all this we can put under the umbrella of AI, and there is also this technology. There is this really stupid model. There is this optimization technique, recommendation system. There's a lot of things that can be understood as AI. Evolutionary algorithms that are not so hype those days, but still fantastic to work with. And I guess that's more the idea, yeah, of my approach.
Yeah. We have to actually close, Derek, I'm sorry. But maybe you can reach the panelists.
I mean, the only thing I'd say is that the opinions on the panel are not the primary opinion. Like, there's a lot of variety in how people think about AI. So if people are thinking that, oh, this is all, if they're thinking like, oh, this is all like super negative, everyone's anti-AI, like don't use it, you're a bad person. Like that's not a dominant perspective. So there's going to be a lot more in the conference where we'll be talking about practicalities.
Indeed. Thank you. So we have to close it here. Once again, thank you so much to the panelists. It was great. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.